looked at my hand-built stone patio and told the whole block party, for a few grand more, a professional could have made that level. The smell of cheap lighter fluid hung in the air. I just smiled. For 3 years, Trevor was the neighbor who defined death by 1,000 cuts. First, it was my power washer he borrowed for a weekend and returned 2 months later with a cracked nozzle. And it was the constant complaints about my aggressive wind chimes, followed by him letting his dog dig up my prize-winning hydrangeas. I let it all go because I believed in being the bigger person, in keeping the peace on our quiet suburban street. The breaking point came after a hailstorm. I'd been out of town for 48 hours, and he had promised in a text to throw a tarp over my new, fragile greenhouse panels. I came home to find every single one of the 12 panels shattered. When I confronted him, he just shrugged. Man, that storm came out of nowhere. I wasn't about to get soaked for a few pieces of plastic. Something in me went silent. Everything clicked. My plan was simple and meticulously documented. Gathered the text where he agreed to cover the greenhouse, 2 separate quotes for the replacement panels, totaling $3,850, and a signed affidavit from our other neighbor, Mrs. Gable, whose security camera clearly showed Trevor hosting a poker game in his garage while the hail came down. The cleverest part was discovering he was up for the presidency of our homeowners association, running on a platform of community trust and mutual responsibility. At the annual HOA election meeting 2 weeks later, right after his big speech, I stood up. Trevor, I just have one question about mutual responsibility. He looked confused as I walked to the front and handed the moderator a single laminated page. It was the invoice for $3,850, stamped with the small claims court filing number. I believe this belongs to you. His face went white. Final detail was the QR code I'd printed at the bottom, which linked directly to Mrs. Gable's timestamped security footage. I watched him try to speak as a dozen phones in the room lit up. He not only lost the election, he was served with a formal HOA ethics violation. The check for the full amount arrived by mail 3 days later, no note attached. Last weekend, I installed the new shatterproof panels myself. They're perfectly level.